Hello, you unique human beings. How are you? I hope this finds you well. I have a little funny story before we start. So, in last week's episode, where I was all sharing about my health and how I expected my health to start declining over the next 3 to 6 months, well, it's like I jinxed myself. Literally a week after I recorded that episode, literally a week to the day, I ended up having a flare up and being really unwell. So I would normally record this on a Tuesday, and instead here we are on a Thursday because I was ill, and then it took me a full day to recover, and I'm still not 100% to be honest, but I'm better than I was, and that's what matters. I think I might do an episode later on another time about how I feel differently after having that flare up and how I've shown myself so much more kindness since then. Moving on to today's episode, which is all about how you can change your life and how you can go about doing that. So I don't know about you, but I really enjoy watching those I changed my life in 6 months YouTube videos, and especially last year and the start of this year where I was struggling and I felt unhappy and didn't know what I wanted to change or how to change stuff. I really got into watching those videos and being absorbed in how people had changed their lives and made things better and created better habits and changed jobs and, learnt new skills, and it was just really nice to watch it. But for me, prior to watching those videos and doing therapy, I would have been like, you can change your life in 6 months, but I'm really not sure how and why, because I think you have to have a really good driving force behind wanting to change your life. But post-therapy, Ali here saying that I think the big key thing for me here would be saying go try and do therapy for 6 months, because that helped me change so much of my life and understand my life so much better. Not understand myself, because through journaling I already understood myself so well, and yeah, there are still some things that I can dig into a bit more through journaling and stuff, but therapy helped me understand and find my joys in life a lot easier maybe, but in a way that I wouldn't have really accepted them or noticed them before doing therapy. And I think it's one of those things where don't knock it until you try it kind of situations. But I would definitely recommend trying therapy if you're interested in changing your life to start with. Therapy really, really helped me get a kickstart on helping me change my life, because I've changed so much in those 6 months that I did therapy, and understanding life's joys and digging deeper into myself a bit more with things that I thought I already understood but were taking on society's expectations in a sense, which I'm not going to go into in this episode. If it's something you're interested in, do let me know. But I am now in so much more of a better place than I was before, and I can more easily recognise when I'm unhappy and dissatisfied with my life, and I can now take action on where I'm unhappy, whereas before, taking action was something that I was struggling with because of my perfectionist tendencies, and also because, and I think it links with my perfectionism, that I was scared I'd do something wrong and therefore couldn't take action or do something. And because it's only been this year that I'm starting to feel like myself again, I'm really wanting to take the reins of my life and be in the driver's seat and be the creator of my own happiness. So, when it comes to really looking at changing your life, I don't think you could change your whole life in one go. I mean, you probably could do if you wanted to. I think it would be a lot of work and it would be a really big challenge, but you probably could do it, and I wouldn't recommend doing it in 6 months. I'd be doing it in a year and then breaking it down into the quarters, but that's not what I'm talking about in this episode. I am talking about changing your life in 6 months, and I'm talking about it and sharing it with you because that is what I'm currently doing. I'm gonna sneeze. Changing my life in 6 months. I'm approaching it like a challenge and a goal setting thing, but I'm also kind of being a bit more kinder to myself about it as well. Trying not to put too much pressure on myself about the whole thing, but I am showing this because I'm going to try and change my life in the next 6 months, and I thought that you might want to do this with me too. So, when it came to looking at how I wanted to change my life, I went a bit old school, a bit traditional, and I went with a well-known and used life coaching technique called the Wheel of Life. If you have heard of it, then that's what we're going to be talking about. If you haven't heard about it, basically, the Wheel of Life is a diagram. It's a big circle, and it is used to help you assess your work-life balance and your happiness and your well-being, and helping you figure out where you need to put in the work to change things in your life to make you happier and feel more fulfilled. So, I'm going to look at my notes because I always forget the actual categories that go in the Wheel of Life. So, when you look at the Wheel of Life, it depends where you look online or what you know. There are so many different versions of what technically goes in the categories that go in that Wheel of Life. But usually they follow the idea of wealth, so money, finances, wealth, health, relationships, which then can either be separated into friends and family and romantic relationships, spirituality, personal growth, community, career or work, whichever way you want to put it, and fun, which I think isn't always put in there, but I like the idea of putting fun in there. And so, as I said, it's a circle, which is why it's called the Wheel of Life, and then it's separated into segments, and those categories that we just mentioned are put into those circles. Those subsections. I'll try and put a drawing up or a link to an image so you can see what I'm talking about. So the circle's divided into segments with each of those categories in those segments, and then usually in the image there are lines drawn through the actual circle from 0 to 10, because basically you're using this as a tool to help you rate those categories from 0 to 10. And you get given a category, for example, fun, and then you'd go, okay, so fun on my personal scale of happiness, how I feel about the level of fun in my life comes to a 6 or a 7. So I'd maybe go 6.5 and colour in to 6.5. Or what I usually do is I don't do colouring in. I'm not, I don't know what you call it. I'm not artsy in that sense of how I visualise stuff. I can just write it down and I'll just put a number next to those categories. And so I would give fun a 6.5. And I'd go through all the categories and put numbers next to them to decide where I feel that my life needs improving in those categories. And that is where I'm going to be putting my time and energy into working on those categories that are ridiculously low. There are two things that I want to mention about the Wheel of Life though. The first one is that sometimes those categories can be a bit broad and maybe you need to narrow them down a bit into subcategories, because sometimes they can just be too big of a category for you to really feel like. The relationship one, for example, that can just actually be grouped as relationship on its own in some people's Wheel of Life. And I do break it down into friends and family. Actually, technically, I break it down into friends, family, and then husband relationship status, instead of having it as one whole big relationship thing, because that's just too broad for me, because there are different parts of the relationships in my life. So there is obviously family relationships, there are friend relationships, and there's the romantic relationship that I have with my husband. Well, not necessarily romantic, but there's the relationship I have with my husband as well. And so breaking those down into 3 categories, breaking that one category down into 3 subcategories makes it easier to get a better feeling for, other than just being like, well, relationships is a 4, but really it's not, because it's the friends part that's making it low, not the other 2 parts. And sometimes I think that's something that can get missed on some versions of the Wheel of Life. My other example is that there is a level of 10. The whole thing is meant to be a level of 10, okay? But sometimes you might have a category and you're never going to reach that level 10 for various reasons. For me, this is health. When I did this in 2020, I don't think my health got higher than a 4 maybe, but I think it was pretty much a 3 the whole way through. I'd have to check my notebook, but pretty much this was a 3 or a 4 the whole way through. And I really struggled with that some people were getting much higher scores, some people were getting 8s, some people getting 10s, and I was constantly getting a 3 or a 4, and that made me feel really shit, and it was a little bit heartbroken because I was getting such a low score. But in reality, I have a chronic illness. I was constantly tired and exhausted, and I was having a mixture of good days, I was a mixture of having bad days, and I was, because I was viewing it as health on a whole, it was always going to be low for me because my health has always been low. But at the time when I was looking at health, I was just thinking really at physical health and not the other aspects of health that, you know, can go in there, like health and fitness and food, and I can't think of anything else, but health, mental health and physical health and emotional health, and breaking it down into those subcategories might have then made it work better for me, and I wouldn't have maybe felt so bad. I would have been like, well, physical health is a 3 because physical health is always going to be low. I mean, if physical health got to a 5 when I was really ill, then that would have been amazing. A 5 would have been the standard instead of a 10, and that would have been easier for me to accept, instead of them feeling like I was piling on guilt and shame and feeling a lack in myself because I wasn't hitting a 10 and I was never going to hit a 10, but I needed to understand that I was never going to get a 10. And especially during that time as well, my health was low because I was dealing with infections. I was having a few flare-ups. I was on 3 new medications all at the same time. And then that was on top of everything else that was happening at the start of 2020 when we were, dealing with COVID. And then 6 months into that, I also had a mini surgery. And so my physical health then dropped again. And I spent 4 to 6 weeks recovering. And then that was hard. And if I'd broken the health category down into the subcategories, then I maybe wouldn't have felt as bad. But like I said, looking back at it now, I realised that I should have lowered my expectations and been like, right, well, my health is always low because I have a chronic illness. My health is always going to be low, and that's okay. Instead of comparing myself to everybody else, I will admit that I get caught up in comparisonitis a lot. So going forward, if I ever looked at something like that again, I would be like either breaking down my health into more sections, more categories, or I would be like, right, well, crossing out the 10 and being like, right, well, my health never really goes past a 5 or a 7, and you can do that with other categories as well. And now we've talked about subcategories, I'm going to go a bit further into subcategories. But I'm also going to talk about when I did my Wheel of Life this time round, what my low tier categories were, and breaking all of that down as well for you. So I'm giving real examples here for everything, so you can see how I'm doing it and following my explanations. So if it's something you're interested in doing and you're interested in using this method, you can hopefully try and make this method into your version. If you went through all those categories and you realised you only had 1 or 2 that were low, that's great. You can, pick those and decide if you want to work on those over 3 or 6 months or even a year, depending what they are. And my 3 ones will not surprise anybody, I don't think. And they are health, wealth, and work. And those 3 are the 3 that I'm going to be working on over the next 6 months. And, maybe some of yours were 5s and not 3s or 4s or 2s or even 1s. And so you kind of feel about average about them. And maybe a lot of yours were between 5 and 7, so they were all really similar. I would suggest picking the ones that you feel pulled towards, you feel, there's a tug somewhere either in your heart or your gut that, is really calling you to fix those parts. I have only ever picked 3 to work on before because I don't want to feel overwhelmed with what I pick and how much I pick, because those categories will get broken down and they will get me to my goals, help me define my goals, and then those goals will hopefully get me to my ultimate dream of changing my life in the next 6 months. But I always say, go with what works for you, what feels best for you, what, lights you up, what you feel pulled towards working towards, doing what works for you. If this doesn't work, then scrap it. You don't have to follow any of this advice. No pressure. So when I'm looking at my 3 areas that I want to work on, health, wealth, and work, I am picking health as an example here because it is my biggest one, and it stands separately, whereas wealth and work kind of are combined and work together, ironically. Whereas health is its own little thing and sits on its own little corner, whereas the other two are kind of combined. And my ultimate goal for this year is to get to IVF. My ultimate goal is to get to IVF and to try and have a baby. This isn't a secret. This is something that we've been trying to do for... Hold on, I'm checking my notes because I can't remember. It's about 6 or 7 years now. And we still haven't got there with IVF. And that's okay. And that's possibly a story for another time. But my goal, my top priority for myself and my husband this year is for us to get to IVF. And so when I'm looking at that as my big goal, I'm then having to break all of that down so I can get to the manageable steps, the manageable goals, the manageable habits to help me to get there. It's still tough because, like I say, my ultimate goal is to get to IVF, and that feels like a lot of pressure, and it's a really big goal. And right now, to get there, this ultimate goal that I have to lose 2 stone. I've already lost like half a stone, but I have to lose 2 more stone to get there. Technically, according to my gynecologist, I literally have to lose... I think it's meant to be like half a stone or a stone, because they do it based on your BMI, but I'd rather play it safe and go with the advice that I got given a few years ago, and that was basically to be at lose the 2 stone to be at the weight that I was when I had that previous advice with the IVF team back then, even though that was with the Liverpool Women's Health IVF Centre. And we're going to be doing this in Manchester, so this is going to be a bit different. I'd rather still, go with doing that. So, sorry, small tangent there. When I'm looking at this, I'm going, okay, so it's IVF, it's lose 2 stone, how to lose 2 stone, okay? So that is upping my exercise regime, it's looking at my eating habits, and it's looking at if I'm eating a healthy or balanced, for me, diet, because I do have some intestinal issues. When I was diagnosed with endometriosis, I was then later on diagnosed with IBS. I had a big chunk of my intestines removed, and there is some possibility that I could have Crohn's or something else instead of it just being IBS. But because the end goal is I want to have a baby, nobody wants to do anything until we've done the whole baby thing, which is a bit frustrating and a bit annoying. But in the meantime, that basically means that a lot of people are like, you need to eat more fibre when you want to lose weight because that's healthy food. And that is true, and that is great. However, eating fibre and then eating too much fibre is not the best for me. So trying to find a version of balanced eating that works for me, it has been difficult. So it might be something that is like looking at breakfast and lunch and making sure they're a different version of healthy than what they have been, and then whether or not dinner needs adjusting and how my husband and I can adjust dinners and things like that. And that would be breaking down the eating section of the whole health to get to IVF, to get to lose 2 stone. And then the exercise version would be, right now it's doing 30 minutes of walking a day, because getting out of the house helps me mentally and physically. So getting out of the house for at least 30 minutes is the goal, and then doing anywhere between a 10 to 30 minute workout in the house as well, because heat negatively affects my chronic illness. So when it's really hot, I can't go out for my 30-minute walks, so I could sometimes do those 30-minute walks in the house, or I can do an indoor exercise workout, which is jumping on my husband's rower, using my exercise bike, doing Pilates, doing a core workout, or doing some strength training. I've managed the last 2 years, to figure out exercise that works for me and makes me happy. It's just getting into the habit of doing it, and doing it at least 4 times a week, which is what I need to be doing. And then because I have a chronic illness and it's different and it's a bit not normal, shall we say, I am on medications. I've been on medications for the last 3 years, roughly, just over 3 years. I've come off 2 of them. I'm still on my 3rd one, but all 3 of them would make me gain weight, which is slightly why I'm in the situation that I am. Normally when I do a fake menopause, I'd put on a stone anyway. However, the other medications increased my appetite. So I'm already aware of not eating and picking at food just because it's there or just because you're bored. I'm literally eating because I'm hungry, because my medication has increased my appetite. And so it would mean that, okay, say for 3 months, I was really, really good on the working out 4 times a week, and I had my version of a balanced diet for me and healthy, and then I was still struggling, then I would maybe go to my doctor and discuss, right, do I need to be on this dosage of my medication? Can I lower this dosage of my medication? Because I can't come off it because I need it to help with the pain that I have, and etc, etc. And so it would be, 3 months in, looking and reassessing what I'm doing. Is it really working? Is it not working? Can I see the results? Can I not see the results? And why? As I said, I've looked at this, or I'm looking at this from the 3 Wheel of Life categories: the health, wealth, and work. And I've already done, as I've just gone through the whole health one with you, I'm looking at increasing better habits, doing that. And then the work one, as I said, I'm looking at work, which is kind of something that I've been working on, breaking down a lot of stuff like I did with the health section, and being like, okay, well, I do enjoy being self-employed, I do enjoy the work that I do, but how can I, really do the things that bring me joy and light me up, and forget the traditional marketing stuff and go back to what I find fun and what works best for me. And, some of that is really hard because I've been in the online business world for 8 years. I was, 2015 when I started, it was all the traditional online business marketing advice, and it never really sat well with me. And when I'm looking at it all, I'm looking at my services and my marketing strategies, and looking at how I can sell with joy and light, and not in a salesy, cringy kind of way, and doing all of that, wrapping all of that up in a package of joy and stuff that lights me up, and not thinking about niches and what fits with what and how A slots into B, and etc, etc. And it does really feel a little bit like I've just got a wad of spaghetti and I'm just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks and what doesn't, and then making changes around that. But that feels fun right now, which feels strange to say, but that feels fun, and it feels enlightening and enjoyable. If this is something you want to know more about, or something you want me to break down a bit more, do let me know, because that is probably something that I could do in either I won't say a separate episode, maybe in the 3-month quarterly goal resetting episode that I plan to do. I could maybe do it in there and talk about how I've broken down the work goals a bit more. Otherwise, it's probably something that I'll only briefly touch on with the quarterly episode. Otherwise, I will probably talk about it all three of them in their 6-month episode recap that I plan to do in 6 months' time. So keep your eye out for that if that's something you're interested in and wanting to know how I've managed to make this work or if I failed spectacularly. Also, one of the reasons that I'm kind of doing this now, well, there's 2 reasons. First of them is that I feel mentally able and capable to make these changes now. And the second one is that it's the summer. It feels like the perfect time to make those changes because there's lighter days, it's brighter, everything feels relaxed and slow and more laid back and go with the flow kind of vibes, which is totally what I'm into. And that's in person and online because a lot of stuff online slows down right now for the summer holidays, whether or not people have children or not and decide to take a long summer break. And it feels that picking now is a good time to make some changes because it takes the pressure off, and it's easier to get outside and work out and exercise and do those things. If you do decide to do this, please do let me know. I would love to see what you plan to work on and what you want to change. Even if you don't use this Wheel of Life method and decide to, pick a different way of doing this, I would really be interested in knowing how you do this. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch. I am happy to help you break down your categories and help you figure out your goals and work towards them if it's something that you're interested in doing. And I really just thought this might be something that's helpful to share right now, as it's something that I'm going through right now and it's something that I'm going to be sharing in real time as well. And as I said, I will do a completely separate episode in 6 months' time to show you the highs and the lows and where I failed and where I didn't and what I learnt with these 3 categories that I decided to pick, which is health, wealth and work. And I just want to say a very, very quick reminder that no matter how hard you work, how many in your life is hard to achieve and seemingly impossible to maintain. So don't put too much pressure on yourself and go with it, as I said, with a relaxed, chilled out vibe when you approach this kind of thing. As always, it's been so much fun being here with you and chatting. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode and for watching and listening. And I will see you next week.